We should do that. Just come on and freeze.
We
like
should
that.
just freeze.
Not say anything. See how long before people say you're frozen.
Yeah, but they won't believe it unless it's a really ugly freeze. It's got to be like this, and it's got.
Yeah.
Then they'll think, yeah, it's genuine. Hello, everyone.
We've blown it now, though. We can't do it.
Yeah, this is good. We've got a good one today, mate. We've got a good one.
Oh wait.
I know this guy. Well, he's not with us at the moment, but he will be with us. He said at 4 and then at 4:10. But you've got some stuff to come up. But just to let everyone know right at the beginning, we've got Tim Davies today, who's a former fast jet fighter pilot from the RAF, who's 20 years in there, and he's 10 years as a senior instructor for the largest flying training squadron in the whole of the Northern Europe. He's also
are amazing.
Oh, his videos are phenomenal. I've got some photographs and I've got a bit of video that we can show as well. It's just phenomenal stuff. And he's very much he's an international speaker, a writer, high performance coach. So it's all about those getting yourselves out of a rut. But anyway, we'll move to that in about sort of 9 or 10 minutes. What a week it's been, is what we say, isn't it?
Quite a week, yeah. Just say hi to Silent Rose, who's in bed in Australia. I mean, that's dedication for you. It must be about 2 a.m. or something out there. So thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for joining us.
That is really good. She's well in bed, I hope, is she? Or is she ill in bed?
No, well, hopefully well. I remember her joining us last week. That's dedication for you. Not that you're not all dedicated. But Harry and I now know what happens on these shows. You all join in, talk amongst yourselves, ignore me and Harry, which is probably the best thing to do. Just sat amongst yourselves and catch up.
It's when we end it at the end, they're like, I was just having a chat with Sharon there. Sharon and Angie.
We provide a service, Harry. We provide a service. I'm proud of it. We do.
We bring people together so that they can talk despite us.
Yeah, in spite of us.
God, loads of messages. That's good. It's really, really good. I speak to my brother in Norway. He lives on a boat, nice little yacht. He sold his house and thought, sod this. He's going to buy a boat. But he was in the Navy once, and he's just fitting a lot of wiring and batteries and things, and so I said, well, we've got a really good guest on this afternoon, so if you want to pop by. He said, yeah, I would love to, mate, but my boat will sink if I don't fill this hole.
Yeah, he probably had a good excuse, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But anyway,
thin cup of tea. If anybody wants to send me mugs to feature on this show,
yeah, I've got mugs. Dave, we need to work up from mugs, mate. Mugs are good, but we need to,
What do we need? What then?
TVs, Ferraris.
Blimey, yeah. If there are any sponsors out there who want to sponsor an amazing show where no one listens to us, they just chat amongst themselves, then please do. People do get their podcast sponsored all the time. A friend of mine's just had her sponsored. I'm like, what do I need to do? I think it's the police thing. No one wants to be associated with us.
We have quite a following on your Facebook, my Twitter, and then bits between. And it's the only ones we can do live. We can't do 1,000 things live at once. And then I download and on our YouTube channel, Frontline Chat YouTube channel. But we don't have an amazing following on there, which means that we're never going to ever make money or anything like that. But that would be great for your foundation course if we did on that, I would suggest. But it's on my personal one. I've got sort of I think 1,600 followers now, so it's doing all right. Yeah, 1,700 followers.
1,600 people that listen to you.
And I've monetized it, so I get advertising now. Where you can click on when you don't want to see the advertising. Do you know how much I get? Do you know how much money I've made?
£1 million a month
in the last 2 weeks. Advertising, 1,600 people.
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
£1.86. Thank you.
Mate, they'll be rolling out the red carpet when you go to the shops next time.
Yeah. Tim Davies, on the other hand, he's just entered the green room. I can see him. He's just tripped over the chair, fallen into the decanter, the wine decanter. He's absolutely a mess down there at the moment. These former pilots, they're very unique people. We had Mandy Hickson, didn't we? The pilot. We've had John Nichol, the navigator.
John's not a bloody pilot.
No, we got navigator.
So now taking the mickey in a minute.
But this is what we need. We need Mandy Hickson, we need Tim Davies, John Nichols, and then we will just hire and get an engineer on, and then we can just listen to them banter each other. Yeah, win it. It'll be amazing.
Perfect. Oh, talking of which, I sent you a picture the other day, didn't I? Have you got it? No, not that one. Don't laugh.
You sent me one. No, not those. Not in our private account.
Definitely not that one. Oh my God, when's it gone?
I'm ignoring that, Gabby. Gabby's gran.
The exciting news.
Yes. Yeah, let's get this on.
He's keen to point out that it's not just a rehash of Tornado Down. It's other people's stories as well. Not that a rehash of Tornado Down would be a bad thing, because it's an incredible story. Our good friend John Nichols has a new book coming out. I didn't even look at the date when I looked at it then.
It's June. It's a while, but yeah. I've loved his books. I mean, I tolerate him as a guy. He's a DC. No, he's a lovely guy. But I love his. Well, I mean, I met him through him writing Spitfire and talking to me about my dad, who was photo reconnaissance. And it made me sort of look into it a lot more and find some more stuff about him. So it was really good. And it's all in his book. And then Lancaster was just as brilliant. So I've read his novels, Tornado Down, and I can't wait, Dave. Can you?
I texted him the other day and said, "Oh my God, I'm really excited to see that your book has got a release date." He said, "You must be bored if you find that exciting."
Yeah, he's so self-deprecating, isn't he? And it's like, to be honest, it's like most of these pilots. And one of the things I see on Tim Davies, I'll call him Tim now. Everyone knows who Tim Davies is now. One of the things I love on his videos is that complete pilot understated, describing, you just got to be a little bit careful now. I'll show you a bit later on about, how they crash, how to avoid crashing the aircraft. But they just say it in such a gentle way, as if it's just scratch the paintwork,
But then you say that, Harry, but then people would be fascinated to hear you talking about how you didn't roll your X5 at 140 and, stuff like that. Although there are clips of it, of course. The Daily Mail share.
Don't think I ever did that. I did write off a RS 2000, but I was thanked by someone fishtailed me on it. Bit of an exciting job. And then went sideways on an overbridge heading towards the motorway and thinking, if I go through this railing, I'm now going down the height of a motorway bridge into 3 lanes of traffic. Luckily, the railing stood. That was the nearest one I've had there. And then the guys that we borrowed the RS 2000 off thanked us because they said the engine was pretty knackered anyway and they could get a new car now. So, but it didn't cost 50 million quid like it would be if Tim made a little mistake, Yeah. Anything else for us, mate?
On the roads the last few days. I've just finished night, so the weather has obviously been atrocious. But luckily the roads are empty. But it's been quite hairy, a bit of standing water. But there's all sorts of gadgets and gizmos in our cars these days that hopefully stop you spinning off the road. And they were working very hard. They were.
Good. So we want to minimise your brain work. Go on.
Yeah, that's it. Just a couple of bits that I want to talk about. Finn's Law Part 2. So we thought it might have been dead and buried because the Parliament were worried, as Finn coughs, but Parliament were worried about their staff. So they kind of stopped all Friday business on health grounds, which meant that the bill couldn't be heard any further. We heard a couple of days ago that it's now going to committee stage, which we weren't sure was going to happen. We still don't know if there'll be government time after that for its third and final reading. If they can find, it's a hugely popular bill. The government, the opposition, everybody wants it to happen. So but to committee stage on Wednesday, 3rd of February, this Wednesday. So keep an eye out for that. I will bore you about it on our social media, no doubt. And if they can then find some government time to talk about it, it will go for its third vote. And if that passes, it will go up to the Lords, where, fingers crossed, it will go through. So nothing's clear or secure yet, but we're on to the next stage. So
there's progress.
email your MP. Just send them one line. Finn's Law Part 2. The animal welfare sentencing bill is in committee stage on Wednesday. I want you to support it. So that's one bit. What else we got to talk about, Jem? Oh, dog training. We've been doing loads of online dog training. Tonight we're doing a live dog training 6 p.m. If you go to the German Shepherd Rescue Elite Facebook page, you'll find me on there. Waffling. Any questions you've got about dog training, go on there. What else? Oh, I've got scent courses coming up and all sorts. So if you want to interested in any dog training, then contact us through Wardell Dog Training. There was some other bits, but I can't remember what they are. Oh, I have my jab. I have my first jab. I was at work. The big centre in Hearts had some jabs left over, and they were obviously the alternative is they throw them in the bin. But what they do is they contact health workers and the police. It's all controlled. It's all controlled by the bosses up in the control room. And they contacted me and said, "Would you like to go for your first jab?" So I've had my first vaccine jab.
Fantastic. I think we should get Tim on now.
He's
waiting patiently. He's on his second bottle of vino now, and it's going to cost us a bomb with resupplying the green room there. So former fast jet fighter pilot, RAF, 20 years fast jets, 10 years in senior instructor. I'm really keen on that because that means he hasn't got his hands on the controls when other people are in there. And that must be pretty it's frightening enough doing the instructing on police cars that I never had to do, but I know the look on their faces when they were instructing me. And he was, and just to remind people who weren't with us before, he was in senior instructor, the largest fast jet flying training squadron in the whole of Northern Europe. He's an international speaker. He's a writer and a high performance coach. And I want to ask him more about the high performance coaching side of things. So let's bring him on. Welcome, Tim. How the devil are you, my friend? How the devil are you? Oh,
you got rid of him,
and he's in the room again.
I can go again. Back again.
It's the professionalism. You see, Dave's got staff. He's got staff. He's got prompters in the side of him telling him stuff. I don't have any of that. You know?
Yes.
Dave, how are you?
I've got a haircut. How are you? Look like one of I look like one of your dogs, don't I? Really, to be fair, I've got like more hair than most of them. I can't may as well grow it out there. You know what I mean?
That's it. You've got to keep your hair this time of year because otherwise you'll get cold. I just want to say your man cave is flipping incredible. I saw it on some of your videos, and I'm dead jealous. You should do a tour.
The wife shares it too, though. To be fair, so
okay.
Kind of. You know, one of many man caves that men have to have, of course. My whole house is my man cave, you know what I mean, to be fair. We shouldn't be doing that as men, should we? We shouldn't go, I'm going to go into my garage and have that. It's like, no. This house, man cave. If a woman wants something else, you know what I mean? Crack on.
Can I just ask you, have you got kids and are any of them girls?
I have not got children. I've got nieces and nephews, which is much better because you can hand them back, to be fair. And also, I'm at that age now where I like not having kids.
Yeah. Well, I've got 3 kids. They're all girls, so that means my man cave is the corner of one room.
Yeah, it would. Your man cave be inside my mug, wouldn't it? There, that's your cave.
I often have to remind people of this because I know you're very happily married and you're very complimentary about your lovely wife and things. And but are you able to tell us how old you are then, Tim?
I am 46. My wife's 45. What are you saying?
Well, just to remind people. I think something gives that away. But to remind people, I reminded my grandfather, my father-in-law at the time, that my dad was 60 when he had me. So, you know, you might have to get yourself a younger model is all I'm saying. But
well, yes, but then I'd have to sell
the
6 cars and sell the houses and not have any holidays. Not that anyone's having holidays, but it's one of those interesting things really with children, isn't it? They've done this correlation about those that have kids and those that don't. And there is no difference in happiness levels, apparently, which I did find odd. But it's, you know, my happiness comes in different ways with a certain aspect of freedom that maybe my sister with her kids doesn't necessarily have, but she has other stuff that she really enjoys. It's just what it is. Life is like that, isn't it? You can't go, what if?
You've got millions of pounds in the bank and I haven't.
I wish that was true. I wish that was true. Yeah, if that was true, I'd be actually repainting this place because it does need it. I've got cobwebs up here and all sorts of stuff. No, it's I do a lot of coaching from here. I do a lot of the YouTube stuff from here. It's just a part of an office. My wife uses it more than I do, and we've got a ghost room next door. It's full of ghosts, and that's where the setup is for all the training I'm doing at the moment. So it's all good.
Tell us from the beginning, okay? Because your videos, and people just need to look at fastjetperformance.com is your website.
Say, if you go onto Tim's YouTube page, prepare to lose several hours of your life, because you will disappear down Tim's wormhole.
And I'm sorry
if you're lucky.
I mean, just to show just general pictures that he's at. I mean, that's a nice little photo. They're beautiful photographs. They are really good action shots that I want to share as we go along, really. But you're just as interested in the psychology of people who are wanting to get jobs, and they're stuck in a rut a little bit and they don't know how to go. It's all about I want to talk a bit later on about your spin recovery program. Brilliant name for a spin recovery, which usually happens to a big lump of metal and you're trying to level out before you kill yourselves. But it's also for the turmoil that people can get them into. And it's about recognizing that we have certain issues, what our potentials are, accepting the current way is not working, preparing for opportunity, and so on and so forth, including, self-control, mastery and your actions. So it's really good stuff. But if we can start right from the beginning, as a 16-year-old kid, what were you doing? What made you get into this in the first place?
What, flying in general, you mean?
Yeah. And into the role of the RAF.
Yeah, I didn't join the RAF, I joined the Navy, hence the flag from the warship, and then I transferred across. But I came from a naval town. I mean, Portsmouth's a naval town. So it was around ships the whole time. Father was in the Navy before he joined the police. So he was a Royal Marine. Then he transferred across to the police and did 37 years on traffic in the end with firearms and everything else. You know what I mean? But so it was traffic. It's funny, actually, the reputation of traffic. When you speak to other police officers about traffic, I didn't realise, Harry. So, you've gone down a bit in my life.
No, but that's why I say.
I'd love to be
all I'll say.
No, I'm saying it first. I'd love to be a traffic officer, but can't get my own head up my own.
There it is.
All I will say, I always felt a complete. It's in Devon and Cornwall, we're dual roles, so we're ARV and traffic. And to be a real there's two types of traffic officers. Those who are like the interceptors, those sort of things, and those who are the gross weight of your vehicle. And there's this underlying rule that if you can't see over what you've stopped, then don't bother with it. Because it's too complicated. Traffic officers spend hours and hours and hours and hours putting a thing together because they broke their tachograph things and whatever, and then the magistrates fine them 25 quid. It's just not worth it, really. Yeah. But the other side, I was ARV, and so I didn't have a brain for remembering figures and stuff like that, so I knew how to shoot a gun.
The video I watched, they were constantly making calculations and figuring how far away they were from the airport.
Tim, this is where I'm getting to. Tim, isn't flying the plane relatively, and I don't mean to undermine this, is relatively the easy bit. That bit easy. Everything around it, thinking about everything else, making sure that your fuel's not running out, calculating your fuel distance, weaponry, flaps, weather, radio, whilst things are happening. That multitasking is phenomenal that I see in your videos, Dave.
Well, it's actually
I've called you Dave twice now, I think. Tim Davies.
We Dave. There we go. Ganging up on him.
Yes.
Multitasking is something that we don't actually do very well at all. And if people do it well, they tend to be women, in fact, and only a small proportion of women, less than 10% of women can actually multitask. And it's probably to do with children, isn't it? Let's be fair, holding a kid and on the phone, and having a cigarette.
Yeah.
We want to get to what women do, but. So we actually say we unitask, but it's just exceptionally quickly. So you have a piece of paper. I look at it like an A4 piece of paper in my head when I'm flying. It's blank. Something comes in, I've got to deal with it and move it away so there's more space on the paper for something else to come in. And when that paper gets full is normally when people die, when something happens, because you've allowed yourself to get overloaded. You've seen it with traffic, of course, haven't you? You know what I mean? Or you've seen it when you're dealing with people that don't want to comply with you, and then something else happens, and then something else kicks off. Or you know it, someone's punched you in the face and run off, and you're like, how did that happen? Well, there was too many things happening at once, failed to control it. Same thing with flying. Most people, all the friends that were killed when I was flying, were in control of the aircraft when they died. And that's a fact. None of them, I don't know a single person that was not in control of the aircraft when they died.
Explain.
So they get task saturated. Task saturation is the killer. So the people I train now, they're all civilians. Wrong, they're not all civilians. Some of them are Royal Air Force students that are holding between flying training courses for up to a year because unfortunately the Air Force recruited too many students. told the Treasury didn't have enough pilots, one hand not talking to the other. So these kids are sitting around, young people. I call them kids because it was a derogatory term we used, but they're pilots, of course they are. They're sitting around for a year and a half, not flying. And of course, their skills fade from one flying course to the next. So they come and fly with me on my server. We do it in the sky, pixels all over the world, and I try and keep them current. And one thing I try and do to them is load them up progressively. And if I see them struggling, I unload them a bit until
people can watch this. People can watch this on your YouTube channel, Fast Jet Performance.
Yeah.
And I've watched these because I'm not a gamer, because I'm scared that once I get into it, I won't be able to. I won't do anything else in my life. But what your videos are amazing, because you get into these 3D simulator things and you talk people through. So they're either really keen gamers, and boy, they must be keen because you know all the instruments and things like that. And your just natural ability to take people through is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Well, that's what we did for real. So on a game, it's not difficult. The difficulty with the game is getting all your equipment and knowing how one thing relates to another. I've got 4 monitors now and a big setup. It's like being an air traffic controller. Yeah. So I'm kind of flying. The other night I was running a sortie for 32 people. It's putting them in 16 different formations and having to do air traffic for them getting out and back in, all whilst trying to fly myself. And I came downstairs, and I must be at the age now where when you are overloaded, you kind of end up slurring your words. And I went downstairs and my wife was like, you're either having a stroke, which you or you've really loaded yourself up too much, wind it back. And I'm like, I'll wind it back. But you just, you get capacity limited. And capacity limited and task saturation is the biggest cause of fatalities that we found in the military. So what we do is we do gradually expand the capabilities of the young pilot. We grow them, we nurture them. I believe in a very nurturing environment, by the way. It's not instructor student, it's a togetherness, because they end up on the front line with us anyway. They're just us. We're just 10 years ahead of them. They're just us. And eventually it all comes around. So eventually they'll be training us to do something. It's just the way it is. And I mean, I stopped flying now 2.5 years ago, I think it was. But I don't miss it because I'm still doing it. I'm just doing it with people that haven't had to go through the Royal Air Force or couldn't get in to the Royal Air Force or maybe health-wise. So they invest in a computer game, which is free.
Yeah,
DCS is free, and then you buy your aircraft, and each aircraft might cost you about £60, but I've got discount codes because I know the guys at DCS in Russia and I know where they are, and so we use discount codes. We only fly 2 aircraft anyway. One similar to this one here, called I say similar to this one. It's a big, heavy 27-ton airplane or whatever. It's called the F-18. The Americans use it. Very technologically capable inside, and then the other one is like the Hawk here, which is, we use the F5 Tiger II, which is a single seat airplane. And that's very mandrolic. That's very much, you've got to move switches. You can't press buttons. So they fly, one's all flight control systems and the other one is just levers. And so I take them through slow time and we build them up. The guys at the moment have been doing it for about 15 weeks. And also we've got a proficiency and completion chart. So they go through like a little flight school I'm running. And then when they leave, I send them badges, certification, and they can use FJP monikers and initials wherever they go on the internet to fly other planes, and they can have that in front of them, and I'll back them up 110% because I take them through my flight school. So if we go back to the beginning, like you were saying, like we haven't done, every kid thinks of flying when they're 7 or 8 years old normally, and you look up there and you're like, oh, airplane in the sky. Most pilots, I get challenged by airline guys sometimes about this. I've got airline guys in my server, actually, quite a lot of them. In fact, my brother's an airline guy now, out in Emirates in the UAE. But most pilots are kind of mavericks, which is why Maverick was called Maverick in Top Gun. They tend to want to leave everything behind and just get away from it all. And of course, what better way can you do that is by getting an airplane and leaving everything on the ground, right? It's not a fleeing anything. It's that sense of adventure. It's I'm going to walk to the top of that mountain because it's there. There's no reason for it. There's nothing on it apart from cold and tiredness and, I've got to get down. So I guess I was one of those. Most of us are. And I ended up failing some exams, my A-levels, very badly. Got involved in sort of minor drug use, at university, at college, sorry. Changed from, I did my GCSEs, did really well, went to a college, and you try and fit in, don't you? All the cool kids. We all do it. Age of 18, it was, 16, 17, 18, and just ended up hanging around, smoking the odd sort of little spliff thing here and there. Nothing serious. I'm not like, that's not who I was, but you end up hanging around with those guys and not hitting the books. And I failed my A-levels quite badly, in fact. So I had to go to, I couldn't do a degree. I went to university to do an HND in aerospace, and then went on to the degree after that. And the Air Force, because I joined the Officer Training Corps, which is like a territorial army, you know what I mean? Because the Air Squadron wouldn't take guys like me that were on an HND. I looked at the Army, looked at the Royal Marines, looked at everything really, but in the end, I put an application into the Navy to fly. They take waifs and strays. The Navy always does. I mean, it's a bunch of pirates.
That's interesting, because that's the route my dad took. He joined the Navy, and I've got photographs of him as a first of all a cadet in the Mediterranean fleet, and he's got beautiful photographs of biplanes taking off from aircraft carriers next to him. This would have been about 100 years ago, literally. And then he couldn't get in to fly planes, so he left the Navy, learnt to fly privately, and joined the RAF.
So then he ended up on reconnaissance and Spitfires.
Yeah, because he was quite old then. He was like 30 years old. And he said, I couldn't really, even though he was doing, he was quite advanced in aviation then, because it was really developing, wasn't it? From the Wright brothers to First World War to really, it was a fast approach. And he was doing aerobatics and stuff like that, all these shows. And he said, but he was away from it and on the senior side until he'd suddenly realised, I can't join a squadron full of 18-year-old fighter pilots because they're much better at it than me. And so he sat at the desk of his mate and said, can I join your squadron for a bit? That's what he did. And it was like, well, he picked up the phone. He said, we've got Tanguy here. Can you take up one of the Spitfires? Yeah, okay, there's one on the thing. Take it up, It's like, can't really do that now.
That's interesting though, because your father just sort of asking me to do it was how I ended up flying jets, because I asked. I wasn't any better necessarily than the other guys on the course. Navy guys training with the Air Force, of course, and the Air Force stream all those guys at end of elementary flying training, and the Navy do as well. And I walked from the airfield around to the Commodore's office. There was a Naval Commodore with us when we trained with the Air Force, and knocked on his door, never word, sir. And I was coming towards the end of this is like your little light spinny piston aeroplanes that you start on, you know what I mean? Your little ones. And something 90%, 95% of all the pilots, all the Navy pilots that went through ended up on helicopters because we had loads of them. We only had a few Sea Harriers, you know what I mean? We had loads of helicopters. And I said to one of the Navy instructors, how do you end up flying jets then? And he said, why do you want to fly jets? Flying helicopters on the back of frigates is amazing. And I was like, yeah, it's amazing. And everyone was like, yeah, it's amazing. And my best man at my wedding, he did exactly that. And his career is just incredible. And I said, I don't know. When I'm flying, have a look at those jet things. I don't know much about them. And the guy said, no, I fly helicopters. Well, I spoke to some of the Air Force mates. Remember, we had Jaguars back then, or they had Jaguars F3s. They had Harrier GR5/7. They had some cool toys. Tornado. I think Buccaneer had just gone out. But yeah, so, and the Air Force guys were like, no, jets. So I walked around to the Commodore and I said, can you talk to him about jets? He said, yeah, if you want to fly jets, I'll put you on the jets, no worries. It was that easy. I even went back to Navy guys and said, if you want to fly jets, you just ask the Commodore. He's all right. He just hasn't got anyone going jets. And they went, nah, helicopters. So I went. I wasn't very good. I was the same as everyone else. And then you go through that struggle of jet world, which is brutal. And
5 years of it you had, didn't you?
I only had 5. Some of my Air Force mates had a lot longer than that, and I think now they recommend about 7 years because it's so messed up because of the holds. They've got like 3.5 years of holds. And I'm good to the Air Force. Well, the problem was, and well, Harry knows me, doesn't he? I can rip this up if you want. We're in the pub, right? So let's get another 7 lagers and smash the place up. May as well. That's what I did when I grew up. You know what I mean? I thought that's what we're doing. Already, I'm all right. So the problem is that the flying training system, unfortunately, was privatized, and I understand why. The Treasury needed to know how much it was going to be asked for by flying training every year. And 1 year they might say, I need £4 billion because I need to buy some new aircraft. And the next year they might go, just $250,000 will do. So the Treasury was like, hospitals closing. It said, right, just tell us what you want, how much you want. We'll spread over 25 years. I'll allocate that money. Done. £250 million a year for about 25 years. The maths doesn't always work out because it was dollars to pounds, blah, blah. Gave it to a company made up of Lockheed Martin and Babcock called Ascent Flight Training. And Ascent, rightly so, they put some good people in there, but they can't throw a whole lot of cash at it. They bought the aircraft. There were some great aircraft they bought. They really tried to develop flying training, but they made it prettier, and the aircraft are better. But there's just it's a pipeline, and you're
saying that. Right, let me show this because it's very apt.
Yeah.
This is very apt. This is on your site. I like to.
I understand the problems aren't necessarily. They're not necessarily. I'm not blaming one company for this, by the way.
Do you know what? Everything is echoed in the police. It's like the police training suddenly went to mass places. It's in Wales. And look, here's, right, now this is a little bit, let me bring this up. So this is, I'll just enlarge this. So fighter pilot is an attitude, it's cockiness, it's aggressiveness, it's self-confidence. It's a streak of rebelliousness and it's competitiveness. And there's something else. There's a spark, there's a desire to be good, to do well. In the eyes of your peers and in your own mind, Robin Olds. Now, the reason I say that, Olds, is it Robin Olds?
Yeah, Robin Olds, yeah, legend. Had a moustache like mine, just a bit better. You know.
Really. But, but it shows, basically what you're saying is there's individual characters involved and all their individual skills, they're separate, but this sort of factory machine. Dave, so one dog handler is very much different from another, aren't they? And
and one dog is very different to another, so you can't standardise. You can't standardise it.
No,
you have to have a massive toolbox. You can deal with all the different people and the different dogs, and find the right technique for that person and that dog. And some, as you know, Tim, and you know, Harry, sometimes in dog training it's a dog and a person, but quite often it's the person. You've got to get through to the person. You've got to find out how they learn and support them through their learning. And
this is it as well, isn't it? With Tim, the thing that I find amazing is with you being an instructor is, and I'm going to put this one up actually, because you being an instructor, like if you're instructing on a car, that's nervous enough. But generally a car can go left, right, and most of all, especially if you're instructing, well, for police it would be probably 140 maybe, but you're going up and down, moment's notice. So it's immense concentration. Now, you were a tornado pilot, you were a fast jet pilot for 20 years. 10 of those was instructing, wasn't that right?
Instructing this one here and that one.
So I'm just going to play a little bit of footage. Let's get this up. And then, because this is going through the Lake District and things, I think.
As Steve tries to
hear yourself talking,
and then use the radar
in the cockpit,
to back that up.
That's Dave.
I think on the water up here in a minute we see, as we come up past Keswick, we can
listen
see
to the comments now,
reflection, because it is so calm, the wind is so light, so there isn't any movement on the surface. And again, this can be a very difficult time for a jet pilot or any pilot over very calm, flat, reflective water. Very easy.
I had a problem there. You're
hear me out into that, and before you know it, you find yourself bouncing off the surface in a very ungraceful manner.
So this is the thing. Your speech that you do,
right?
You could bounce off the surface in a very ungraceful manner, and then you go on to say scattering lots of aircraft over a long, wild area. But you have that real composure. I know you're narrating afterwards. So there's your pupil in front of you as such, your student in front of you.
Okay,
these are the low levels you're going
to.
Across to, I don't know how you do it for so long. You must have had some very near misses, hadn't you? Or you were just shattered when you came out of the aircraft every time, didn't you?
It's funny because so you get home sometimes. I mean, there's long days. There's long days. Sometimes you might fly. I mean, the long days for me weren't necessarily about the flying. The long days were when I was an exec on a squadron. Was the meetings sometimes where you've got to solve very kind of wicked problems that you can't solve. You haven't got the money. You don't own the flying training system. You've got guys at work for 14 hours a day. The marriages are falling apart. And then you've got a guy whose marriage has fallen apart, but he's one of your best instructors. The boss tells you not to fly him in case he goes and slots himself. And you take him flying anyway because you trust the boy. He's a good lad. And his only thing he's got now, his marriage is completely fallen apart. The only thing he's got is his status and reputation. And your boss wants to stop that. It's like, I'll tell you what, come on, mate. I know it happens. Police in my family. My father was a police officer for a long time. My sister still is a serving police officer. She hates me telling people that. She hates me telling YouTube she's a police officer. She's like, don't squid him in. She got one of your books, didn't she? You sent her a book. She loves that. She took it in. She was like,
don't give you that, did she?
Yeah. I was like,
very flattered. Yeah, but she's a really hardworking one. I swander around in a big fast car all day, but she's a detective, isn't she? She's phenomenal.
Yeah, she does. She deals with some horrible stuff, and it kind of. You can see that it really erodes her faith in humanity. Just does.
Yeah.
There's some weird people out there, to be fair. I know they've got backgrounds, and I'm that guy that talks a lot about underprivileged men. All right, especially at the moment, the people that we're leaving behind are underprivileged white boys. They just happen to be that. I get called a racist a lot. I don't care. I'm not racist. I'm just genuinely not. I get called all this. Well, all on Twitter, I get told transphobe. I'm not a transphobe. It's none of this business, all right? None of this. I just believe in certain things at the moment until better conversation's been had. We haven't had a better conversation at the moment. And right now we're leaving behind little white, young white men. And that's only going to lead to a life of crime, isn't it? It's going to put them in a worse place. And then their family's going to be involved. So I know that a person that like my sister deals with is a product of something else. Yeah, it's not necessarily they haven't woken up one morning going, I'm going to go and stab that person, or I'm going to go and kill that baby, or I'm going to, whatever it is, or I'm going to go and rape that. It comes from it. It doesn't just start in that. So I'm a big fan of that. So, but you're right. She goes through some horrendous things and she deals with it. But then occasionally what happens is it kind of blows up, and like any one of her on her team, someone will notice, they'll say, do you reckon, how's it going? That's a good question, isn't it? How is it really going? Really, how's it going? Keep pressing it. And, eventually she'll go, hey, let's take some time off. Or one of her people will go, hey, look, I'm going to, but of course, you don't want to do that. Same in the military, because of course, if you do take someone some time off, they might realize you're not indispensable, They don't need you.
Oh, sorry. I'll just bring that back.
Yeah, that's upside down.
Yeah. Dave, I mean, it's so much reflecting, and I know you've been very open and honest about the start in your life, Dave. What got you into the police and things, and I think, at the moment, it's too easy. We're one extreme or another. We can't be a little bit of that and a little bit of that. You're in either one gang or the other. I think it's really unhealthy. And open conversation is too dangerous. So I completely agree with you, Tim. But it is it's a difficult conversation, isn't it, at the moment? Not for you and me, but certainly for Dave. So tell us.
I was one of those underprivileged white kids. There was nothing. There were no opportunities. I had my father died when I was very young, and my mum had a nervous breakdown, so she couldn't even ask for the support that wasn't there available for us anyway. So, I mean, I went to the RAF careers office in London and filled out a form, and then thought, well, I'm not worthy, so I just left.
I get a lot of that.
There's no one behind me saying, yeah, you can do this, get on with it, you can do it, you can achieve anything you want. That's one thing I say to my kids all the time. You can achieve anything you want to achieve. There's no difference between you and Bill Gates, or you and Mandy Hickson, or you and, I've got three daughters, you and Michelle Obama. There is no difference. It's just the opportunities that are created or that you create.
Yeah. I think the support is so critical, isn't it? I mean, you must have seen Harry. That's the truth right there. I've come a bit from one of you.
Yeah, it's very echoey. Picture up, Harry.
Echoey.
I think it's when you put a picture up of me, what happens is not enough of just my voice, it just has to magnify it to the masses.
I'll try it once more I'll try it on this when you were catching up on some paperwork.
Yeah, that's I think we get the echo when the pictures go up. So those are check cards coming out. That's working in the back, but the tiredness, the fatigue thing, that just got caught on camera. I used to use a GoPro, used to film several minutes of it, and then take a still and enhance. It's the real only way you can do it. And also, by the way, I wasn't allowed to, but I felt it was very important to push that narrative, that message of the Chief of Air Staff of engaging. And no one was doing it. It wasn't being done. It was poor. It was just bad. So I started doing it. Started writing in 2011. I got back from Afghanistan, but. And those pictures, really, I just put them out and just went, this is the job. And you know what? It's not all that great sometimes. It's not. They helped a lot of people out. A lot of men and women wrote to me who hadn't been pilots. They'd gone and done something else. And they engaged in a conversation about how that had, one of my clients in North America, his whole life, he was 60, his whole life was it just hooked on the fact that when he was about 20, before his medical in the Royal Air Force, for being a pilot, he went clay pigeon shooting and then he failed the hearing test, and he's hated himself for 40 years. And I said to him, yeah, that's bad. You could have become a pilot, but also you could have been killed. Your friends could have been killed. You could have killed a lot of people because you were ordered to and you never even knew why. And now for the rest of your life, you're wondering about those nephews and nieces that you've got that someone else hasn't got because you killed on an order of a government that you didn't support. It's all that stuff. You know what I mean? We take one path, we could have taken the other. It's all a trade. It's like public health policy, isn't it? It's just a trade. It's nothing right or wrong. So I do a lot of that, but there is that fatigue. And the more people that leave the military is quite sweet at the moment because the airlines have all shut down, so people have rejoined. But that just magnifies the problem because they've rejoined for now until the airlines pick up. And then not only do they leave, who've left already, and also they never want to be in the Air Force because they left for a reason. But other people are going to leave in 3 years' time anyway because that's what they planned. So they're going to have a hemorrhage of pilots. And the Air Force, unfortunately, can never really plan. It's a very much a today organisation. But I put that picture in, and when I saw it, I went, I'll capture that, put it in, because I was fatigued. And I got diagnosed with chronic stress back in 2014. And you know what I did? Nothing about it. I was told to take 30 days off. Didn't do anything about it at all. Carried on working. The guy in the next door office to me was an ex-Harrier pilot. He'd seen a psychiatrist as well. Told me, look, go and have a look at this guy. Saw him twice. He forgot to call me for the third appointment. I forgot to call you for the last 9 months. It's pretty standard, though, really. We know. I carried working through it, and eventually you work through it and you carry on doing it. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I know that in your business that happens as well. And then you leave and you're a bit burnt out.
Yeah. So what's the answer then?
Well, there needs to be an answer. And the way I look at it is I realize that the job isn't worth no job is worth that. You're never going to get through to the senior commanders. It's not their fault. Okay. They're just concentrating on other stuff. Like the police officer we saw the other day that stopped that young boy. And all the boy had to do was give him his name. But no, that was too much hassle. Fine. I'm going to get hate for this. Fine. I get it. I would have just given him a name. Just give him a name. But the lack of support that police officer had, and I don't want to go too much into this, the lack of what he had from his constabulary, I thought was poor. That's what I'm saying. All right. So now you've got police officers feeling they aren't supported. In the same way in the military, I've always known, bosses are supposed to support people in squadrons. They're busy doing other stuff. They're fighting fires. They're juggling figures, aren't they? They're output driven. And it just takes a pilot to turn around and go, I'm unsafe, everyone. Before you tell me I'm unsafe, I'm telling you I'm unsafe. And that's what I've seen people do that before. Very effective. Let's sort you out then. It's time. It's chill.
It's just so...
Pilot is to tell him to go home and play video games because then his wife thinks he's a failure or whatever, or the husband thinks they're a failure. So I think you just need to mandate a working day of a 9 to 5. That's it. I don't want to see you inside. Germany does this. You can't contact people by law outside of the working hours.
Right.
But when you're in the working hours, and I know you guys have paperwork to do afterwards, don't you? Because you're about to climb out the car and you come across a road accident. You've got to stay there overtime. But it just needs to be better resourced, and of course, it never will be. So
yeah, but you can do things yourself, can't they? I mean, I work with people who sit in their living room on a Saturday evening and read their emails and answer their emails. If I was at work on a Sunday night and I sent an email to certain people, I'd get an answer within minutes. And I think, but you're not at work. Stop it. There are other things, and you have to have other things. Otherwise, you go mad.
I think we'll just touch
have one thing, and that one thing goes bad. That's when you've got problems.
I was able to. Fortunately, I was able to. When I was home, I was completely. I didn't even want to talk about it, not because I was just bored of it by then. I wanted to come home and relax. It was a different atmosphere. I didn't want to go. When I was at work today, I tried it a couple of times, thinking it would probably be good, and it didn't work. It was like. It's just bringing work up again. For me, it just didn't work. That lad, the video, Tim, that you're talking about, I thought, yes, we could have. And I think that this is what people have got to realise. And I wish bosses, because I don't go in the habit of criticising forces, but I wish certain bosses would realise, and this is the problem, the criticism has probably been done by a media team who's liaised with the professional standards unit, chief inspector, superintendent, who said, oh, God, that looks terrible. OK, what do we put out? And if you put out too much, like tweet, page 2, page 3, page 4, we're really sorry. Yes, it'll backfire because people use that in ammunition and your front line will go, oh, we've got to have a good day, every week, every month, every year for 30 years. Otherwise, that's going to be us.
That's right.
You will be thrown under the wheels. And yes, I think personally, and Dave, I don't want you to comment on this, but, because you're still a serving officer and I don't want, but personally, I think, yes, of course he could have dealt with it better. But I've done stops where I've thought, oh, God, Harry, he wound you up, you idiot. And yet for everyone else, those police officers, personally, if I was concerned, I'd think, why am I going to do COVID stop checks now? Why am I going to do it? So I shoved this thing together on my website, Harry Tanguy, on YouTube, rather. Harry, police stop checks explained. And it's 30 years of stop checks I've done. The pros, the cons, what you should do if you're stopped by the police, what will happen, and generally the thinking going on in cops' heads as they're doing it, really. And it just explains it's gone down pretty well. But
good that's done. Good that's done well. Yeah, it should do well.
It's a nightmare, isn't it, mate? So tell us about your spin recovery program.
Spin recovery program, right? Okay, yeah, cool. So there are things that obviously we look at basically, and it kind of went through because you leave, don't you? And I'm not saying midlife crisis. I don't believe in midlife crisis at all. I just think there's that period of time where we've done 20 years in a career where we're thinking, have I got to do another 20 years of this? Have I got? It's like same thing, really. My wife's going through it now. She's like, been a chiropractor for 20 years. She's like, another 20 years of being a chiropractor? It's one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's true with that. It's going to add stress. I mentioned you live with that stress every day. Same thing in flying. Unfortunately, you do a mistake. First thing happens in flying is you make a mistake. You put your hand up and you say, I make a mistake. Brutal honesty, because then no one can damage you. But so the spin recovery is for people that want to take back control. It just happens to be predominantly men. And I won't run a mixed class at all with this. It was a 14-week program. I can actually brought that back to 10 now. I can run it on an individual basis, but I prefer running it in teams of 6. And the men that go through it, there's some brutal weeks in it. There's that one, that week 4, where you wouldn't be here unless you really wanted to make some positive kind of change. What you're doing already isn't working. You've got to take responsibility for yourself. I work a lot with special forces guys. I know a lot of special forces guys from where I live in the country, and they contact me because they do similar stuff to me. When they leave, they run similar courses, and one of the things they keep saying is that especially when they're 30 seconds out from an op, no one's coming to save them. No one's coming to pick those boys up. They've got to get themselves out of that. And it's a great way to look at it as a man or a woman. It doesn't matter. I don't care who you are, what your gender is. No one is going to look after you as much as you have to look after yourself. I know we talk about children and how much we throw ourselves, we'd look after. Of course we would. That's different. I think parenting different. I've got nieces and nephews do exactly the same thing. But when it comes down to us, no matter all the guys in the pub, all that kind of stuff, it does come down to the individual to pick up that weight in the garage and lift it up. And it sucks, especially when it's raining. It sucks. I hate it. What I do on the spin recovery, if there's a guy going, I'm carrying a few pounds, I'm carrying a few. Who isn't carrying a few pounds right now? He's like, but I really want to get back into fizz again. You're not. Yeah, you never do though, do you? You haven't got open doors. You just slide through. Go through the keyhole. Go for the keyhole. I'm Harry Tanguy. Brilliant. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, fair enough. Not you then. Everyone else in the world, every real person, Harry.
People don't know the stress I'm under. I try to put weight on. I can't. It's impossible. I try.
Fair enough.
I drink more beer.
Yeah, lager, constant.
No, go on. It's fascinating. Yeah, so they've got to want it. They've got to want it, no?
Yeah, so that's a lot of people. I understand this. They say they want it, but what is it they want, and why bother? Right. So that's another thing we talk through. Why bother getting fit? Why stop drinking? Why eat healthily? Why bother? Right. Probably got another 30, 40 years on this life. Why not enjoy it? I totally and utterly get that. I'm exactly the same. And that's the mentality we go through. So if they want to start fitness, and the guy's in North America and he's like, yeah, I'm going to train at 6 a.m. and for me or something, that's a ridiculous time. Like, it's not going to be the way that works. Bit of a bad example. Maybe he's going for a run at, say, 7 p.m. and it's going to be 4 a.m. for me. I'm up at 4 a.m. He's got someone. I'm texting the dude. Where are you? What are you doing? Wow. I'm out here. I'm showing you a picture. Look, it's dark where I am. Wow. I'm here. Come on, this is men together. This is what we're doing. I had a guy. You do meet some really interesting people that have had really rough times and they've overcome it. And one of the guys wrote to me. I think I might have told you this. He went to kill himself in. I think he was in Hungary or something. This is a few years ago. Yeah. Walked up a mountain. He had a Luger, and it was cold. When he said that, I was like, that wouldn't be my weapon of choice. I'd probably take a spoon or something. It's going to work better. Anyway, it froze on him in the morning. Froze on him. He's like, ugh. I'm like, really? You haven't read all the history? And yeah, fine. Came back down, and someone had sent him like a YouTube video I'd done or something. Just he thought I'd watch this, and then he wrote to me and said that actually he's reevaluated some stuff. And I worked with that guy for a while, still alive today, to be fair. But that stuff makes a difference to me, which is why I run the spin recovery. But it's not for everyone. And it does cost money, and it needs to cost money. It's half the cost of a UK funeral. That's a fact. That's why it's cost that price.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. And also it sorts people out to say, I know people very close to me that were alcoholics, and they realised that they've got enough of their domestics. They were divorced, alcoholic, they losing their jobs, and it got to a point where they said, he said, I didn't even reach rock bottom, but I knew that it was hard enough sorting out houses, jobs, interviews, life when I'm sober, let alone drunk or hungover. So it's a simple choice. God give them credit. My God, have they turned it around? It's still, life's tough. It's not always.
You know what? Sometimes people slip and they're like, phone me up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, so you slipped.
Yeah.
So what
got you into all that, Tim? I mean, was it just you saw the same sort of people making the same sort of mistakes? I mean, I do dog training outside of work because dog training is actually pretty easy, and we all make the same errors. So if you can just point people in the right direction, you can change their whole relationship with their dogs. But what got you into this sort of self-help, this trying to help people through their issues? Was it just because you saw the same things happening all the time, or how did it come about?
Well, I lost 2 people over Christmas through suicide, both men. One was a police officer, one was actually a dog handler, and one was a sergeant in the military, in the Royal Air Force, who I used to work with. Both of those guys killed themselves. Now, the thing is, if you can get to guys early, you can stop that. You can stop it. Guys don't go to the pub anymore. We know they don't go to the pub, all right? So we don't do that thing after work. Police clubs, Harry, I was a massive fan of police clubs. My father used to a fatal or something.
So was I.
He'd go up to the police club, have a few beers, sometimes a blue light taxi, take him home. Yeah. Old times. Right?
Old times, and I remember them well. I remember the blue line taxis. Blue line taxis.
Yeah. And
crazy.
And they shut, didn't they? And what happened? More mental health issues happened in the police force, didn't they, all of a sudden? We've got regiment, we've got political correctness. So the bars in the Royal Air Force are doing the same thing, unfortunately. The students don't drink as much anymore, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But we've got technology now, so we can go to our rooms, watch TVs, can't we? I'm going to socialise. And yet we are herd animals, we're pack animals. We have to have that kind of relationship with each other. The guys form real intense bonds in spin recovery, okay, and the guys I work with. So I was working with individual guys anyway. And it was a lot of me giving a cross, and then you've got to go and see someone yourself to undo all that stuff. So there's a guy I see every 3 months. He's just a dude from North Wales. I chat things out with him. But I realized that we could do better work, and we could reduce the time, and we could save people money, and we could get them back ready again and off running if we did it en masse. So I bring in 6 guys at a time, no more than 6 now, run maybe 4 or 5 courses a year, something like that. And the guys, they all go into the same pot at the end of it. I run a couple of courses so far. They've done really well. And I just realized that once guys can be open about stuff, because we've all got insecurities. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know I'm exceptionally good looking, but still, I do worry maybe, I could be better looking. But we've all got insecurities. No, I couldn't. You're right. There we go. Yeah, exactly, Claire. So, and it does happen. So we've all got insecurities about whether we're doing the right thing, whether we are. What's the recent thing I was looking through? Oh, life being about transactions. Unfortunately, we are transactional people. So we'll do something in order to get something back. It's not malicious, but if we do someone a favor, if we don't get a favor back from them at some point, we're kind of like, I get agitated. And all I was trying to say to these men, that's all I say really, is make those transactions with yourself. All right, it's fair enough. It's like you're not going to get that body again. All right, you're only going to get older. So some point, you've got to put that one foot in front of the other. You've got to go for that walk that leads into a bit of a little hop, a bit of a run, and before you know it, you are doing a half K, or a half marathon or whatever. It doesn't just materialize. Break. Lads,
I don't know why the photos. I don't get why it gets jerky, but they're such beautiful photos. I don't want to not have them.
And also, it serves as a bit of a reminder for me. I mean, I don't reminisce. I tend to close things off in my life. I think that's quite healthy to do to a certain extent. As in, I've done that. Move on, next journey. And you might say, well, hang on a sec, Tim, you've got Fast Performance and you're teaching people to fly. And it's like, yeah, I kind of am doing that. But that's a business for me now. Yeah. I'm not, I try not to label the fact I was flying airplanes. It just happened to be doing this, you know what I mean? But it's, try and look at that next road and move on. So that's why I went in and did that things with guys. I felt there was a need for someone in a high profile position to say, you know what? I can still struggle and do this job as well. And if you didn't get to do this job, you're very lucky, because there's some bad sides about it. There's bad sides. I think Chris Thrall, you on Chris Thrall?
Yeah. I've been on his YouTube. He's a lovely guy. And oh my God, what he's had experienced. Some dodgy moments.
He had Robbie Williams on, didn't he? Robbie Williams.
Yeah.
That guy just, he walks on stage with fear, you know, and look where Robbie is. I mean, everyone wants to be a rock star. Really? Go and speak to Robbie Williams. You know, it's not a nice thing in the world, is it? So I like
what you're doing is, I find time again with the book I sell, and no doubt with Dave as well, people go, they sort of assume that you sort of swanned in there, you got to the top, especially if you're an instructor, Tim, and especially if you're so well known, Dave and Harry. Anyway, and but you know that you just, you know, you're the ARV sergeant, and you just want to. I remember looking at the ARV sergeant when I joined the police, thinking, oh my God, they must be the best of the best. They must have found it so easy to get there. And that's why a lot of I do YouTube stuff for schools. I've got Exeter University coming up, actually, and the Air Cadets. And I did one for Eton College, funnily enough. Nice. Cracking bunch of lads, 13-year-old lads up to 18. Yeah. Really good. And I do that. But most of that is, look, and then I did this and I failed it. So then how did I deal with it? Well, then I did this and I failed that. And then what? And, you know, and I say, and then I did that. Did I fail it? And they go, yeah, you failed it. I said, I'm not a total loser, you know, is it, you know, but it's not what, yeah, thank you. It's not what you do. It's how you deal with it, isn't it?
That's it. But Tim, I saw a snippet of a video Tim did where he talks about the fact that nervousness is absolutely, it's natural and you have to use it. But no one ever teaches you that, do they? No one ever teaches you that the day before your GCSEs, you're going to be absolutely bricking it. But you know what? That's perfectly natural, and you've got to use it. And I think, you know, that's what people like Tim can hopefully help with.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was nervous most of the time I flew. It's not nervous. It's apprehensive. Now, being apprehensive is a good thing when you fly these airplanes. That's a good thing because they'll kill you. They will kill you, and they'll kill other people as well quite quickly. So if you're not apprehensive when you're disrespecting these airplanes, you know you are. And I'll be honest with you, some of the friends I had that were killed, arguably, could have had a different attitude towards the aircraft. Let's put that without going. You know, it's like we've all driven too fast in wet conditions and horrible conditions. You got to be respectful for the road. We know that. It's a term, isn't it? Respectful for the conditions. I mean, Harry knows that, doesn't he? Of course. And sometimes we're not. And what happens? You crash. It is what it is. But I say it to young students. I mean, when you give a student that's come through a propeller airplane, another bigger propeller airplane, then you give them a jet here that travels up to about 8-9 miles a minute at low level. It's happened quickly at 9 miles a minute. And this thing here, you do it at night with night vision goggles on, down to 250 feet, down to 100 feet during the day. You can do that down.
Dave, that's just showing off, isn't it, Dave? What do you think about Tim saying that? It's just showing off. Now.
And it's got wings that move, and flames come out the back.
I know.
Did you have wings?
It is.
Did you have wings? No, you didn't, did you? I had wings. You had no wings. But they had a big 27mm cowser built into it there. So how big was your gun? Was it this big? So you're going to go, bring guns out. But you're asking a lot from these people. That weighs 26 tons. 26 tons.
Now tell me, that brings us on, because we are running out of time. But that brings us on. We'll extend it. We'll extend this. Because you say there's a blog where you tell a story of where your job was to back up the Marines, the soldiers in Afghanistan, and that they were under fire, and you needed to make headway, and then you suddenly realised with your afterburn, and the last message you wanted was, we ain't got time over there. We got to refuel. Do you remember that? Can you just tell us through that sort of account of what's going through your mind, the stresses, and then the lovely thing that happened above you?
Yeah. I mean, that's Al-Amara. That was southern Iraq. 07, 06, something like that. I don't know. We were there over Christmas anyway. We hadn't had any kinetic ops. We hadn't dropped. We were doing Overwatch recon with the pod on there, making sure pipelines weren't being. We had bombs on. We had that kind of stuff. Lots of fuel bombs. And I was with the guy in the video that you saw flying down the Lake District. Called Steve. Guy called Steve, good buddy of mine.
Oh,
this is flight 2 we're down over Basra. That's right. We're over Basra. And we're just 20,000 feet, just looking at oil pipelines. We had a route to fly. Sometimes we'd escort a convoy, and we were getting low, about to go home. We'd been airborne, I think, 5 or 6 hours. And that's a long time. And all you've got is a bag of Skittles to eat, and there's not much going on. It was pretty tedious. War is tedious until really nasty things happen, and then you have to deal with them and hopefully survive. and we got called up to what's called a TIC, a Troops in Contact, up in Alamara. It was Omara, in fact, which was, I can't do the maths in my head. It was about 15 minutes flying time, I think. I can't remember how far it was now. At least we can do the maths on that if you really wanted. But it was, we got called up there. This means troops are being hit. Now, and if you get called for Troops in Contact, there's a workflow you work through. You check in with Chariot, which is an Overwatch frequency, a command freak. And these boys are in trouble.
Yes.
They were, I can't remember what regiment they were now. I think it was a Hampshire-based regiment. I really can't remember. Anyway, but they're in trouble. They've been hit by an IED, and their boys bleeding out, basically. So they had crowds forming, and within the crowds, it's very easy to set another IED, that kind of stuff, to fire in from a crowd, to target the troops with vehicles. Early days of like Snatch Land Rovers, not much protection. So they called for us. Now, we didn't realize it was that serious at the time. So I said to Steve, mate, I think I had more fuel than him. I'll go up, have a look, and you stay here, do the tasking at Basra. But within a few minutes, it became, all of a sudden the voices come on the radios and it's getting quite intense. I've got a guy down the back there working the freaks. I'm trying to work in stuff. We knew we had to bomb, probably. They're asking for kinetic ops. So he was starting to put in target locations and lat and long. I took over the radios. We're speaking to authorities up here, and I'm looking at the fuel. And we're traveling pretty quick. We're probably about 9-10 miles a minute here. Wings back, fire coming out the back here. We are a fast, nasty, angry swing wing messenger of death about to come and change people's lives, unfortunately, for the worse. And then I realized, we haven't got fuel when we get there to do anything really constructive. We need to head up to a tow line in Baghdad. Now, the tanker we had was a British tanker that day up in Baghdad. So I get on the radio and I said, look, we are fuel priority. We're in a world of pain. And literally, they called back and they said, we'll try and work it out. We'll try and sort you out. We'll try and get you an American tanker. I said to Steve, get up here, mate. I've got to go to a tanker. Steve says, mate, I'm on my way. So he starts doing the maths, starts doing the bomb, and starts trying to work in the cause, talking with the army on the ground there, saying, what do you need, guys? What can we do? And then as I reached the target location in Amara, it was near a stadium, as a main road going through. It was just devastation. You could see it on the pod from a distance. The whole, everything was spread out. And the tanker basically come down from Baghdad, and he just said, "Look up." I looked up, and there's this shadow of this tanker at the top. Ooh. So I went straight over the top of the boys on the ground, a couple of 100 feet, put a massive noise footprint down. And when a tornado does that to you, you know what I mean? It's like,
because you do a show of force, don't you? You don't just.
Yeah, show of force. Well, yes, it's an escalation of kinetic violence in effect. So initially, of course, you put the noise footprint down. So you go.
What sort of speed are you talking about?
About it's about 540 knots, so 600 and something miles per hour. So we tend to work in miles a minute. It'll be 9 and a bit miles per minute. So you'd be subsonic, but you just
wouldn't you? You would.
The ground lifts up. Yeah, crikey. Yeah. People tend to
But there's a very sad ending to that, because you met someone on the way back. I'll just bring this up, and you might need to just speak afterwards. But let me just see if our sound gets better with it fully on there. Do you remember?
I do. Yeah, I remember. I'm going to echo.
Yeah, I'm going to take it off then, mate. I'm going to take it off.
Fine.
Go on.
People can read it. It's
Yeah, shall I read it?
Well, no, what I mean is people. Well, you can read it if you want. Yeah, I mean, people can read the essay. It's I can't remember.
It was just a really sweet bit, because you're then flying back as a passenger, and you found out that as a in a big troop carrier thing, and you find out that some of the people and some of the wounded on there were from the team that were below you, that you were helping. And you said, when I left Iraq at the end of my tour, I was on a troop plane that also happened to be carrying some of the soldiers that were on the ground the day in Amar. It was a pure coincidence that I got talking to a young guy who told me about his time in the country before asking about the flying. After a bit of banter and a few laughs, he told me about the incident. It was clearly still affecting him. He had been with one of his friends who'd been hit in the blast. When I heard the noise of your jet come over, I knew we were going to be okay. And I said to him, "We're okay. The jets are here. We're going to be okay." He just relaxed, closed his eyes, and then he died. So it's having that, the final thoughts in his mind and to his mate, which I'm sure made his mate feel a lot more comfortable, that he died knowing that everything's all right now, and
well, hearing's the last thing to go, right? Hearing's the last, hearing's the last thing to go. Which is why we still talk to people. So when we put the noise footprint over, and from the noise footprint, I went straight up to the tanker. I'm up then, chaff and flare, up the tanker, get refueled. Steve comes in, does the same thing, and then I'm off the tanker and I'm ready then to. But it was one of those, the Prince of Wales Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, I think it is, PWRR at the time. Now you never go. You might go into theatre together as a squadron, but you come out as individuals normally, and you swap over with other people after maybe 7-8 weeks. You have 2 weeks back home, and do some sims, go back out. And the reason that I was on that trooper was because on my last trip in Iraq, I'd been hit by lightning over near Mosul in Kirkuk in the northeast mountainous regions, and we had to land in Kirkuk, and it was a very unpleasant mud-based American airbase where nothing landed. So we were trapped there for 3 or 4 days. A lot of the squadron had gone back. When we eventually managed to get the jet out of there after about 5 days, the bomb had partially armed. The team had to come up over 1,200 miles to make that safe. We got out. We were being targeted the whole time. We got the jet back, and we were on the transport that these guys happened to be on. So we sat next to them, and we got chatting, and they were like, because you're in your flight suits, you know what I mean? They were like, what do you guys do? I'm like, oh, we're jet dudes. That's cool. What do you do? Oh, we're just, we're just infantry. And I'm like, dude, you guys are on the ground. That's crazy. And they told us a story, and we're like, yeah. And I was like, hell, that's us. We were that crew. That's a crazy story.
What lovely feedback.
Yeah, and then we just talked about each other's interpretation of it. And for them, and they admitted, they were like, we want to bomb stuff. We wanted that bomb. We wanted to destroy stuff. Because 3 people died that day. Three young men. And they are young. You don't understand. I mean, you probably do understand this, but they are young, and they can also come from impoverished areas. And I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying it's sense of purpose. But these young men, when they are injured and they are then given a flat and a pension, their life does fall apart after the army. They're not. I'm not saying they're looked after that.
I get it.
True. Yeah,
completely get it, because they're suddenly no longer in that little secure family anymore. Right. It's like on their own.
And then their mates have families, so why is that? They're not going to see them anymore. The years go on. It's horrible. So actually, 3 guys died that day. It's probably for the best, to be fair. I hate to say that, but they kept telling us. They kept saying, "Oh, this guy's died," and it's really weird. You're tanking, like getting fuel, and you're hearing that. You're like, that kind of sucks. And then you're over the top of them, because we had the gun as well. So escalation of force is the flyover first. That normally makes people go home and play Xbox, because it's like, that's better than what's going to come next. The next thing is firing into the target area, probably long or short of whatever you're trying to engage, or whatever you might have to engage. If that doesn't work, then the bomb comes in, and you don't put a bomb long or short. You put the bomb on the target. That's going to ruin your day. So you're trying to say to people, here's the big jets. We're here now. There's 2 of us, and we're not happy because we fly for 6 hours and I want to go back and get some Zeds. Here's the gun, which we didn't have to use that day, but we would. 27mm Mauser cannon, high explosive rounds. You move away after that. You see the world erupt around you, and it's like, I don't want that to be near me. And then the bomb comes, and that's pretty terminal. You don't want that. That's a laser guided bomb. So we then heard the second guy died, and we're just orbiting over the top, not being able to target anything. You can't target insurgents in a crowd, and most of the crowd were dissipating, but there was still a hardcore one where the soldiers were expecting to receive fire. And then the third guy died. And then eventually they managed to get a ground-based extraction unit, which we gave Overwatch for, and then we handed over to the next guys coming in, and they overwatched and we went home. It's a strange one, Harry, because I look. The one of the things is I look back on these. I mean, I've got a flag here. I'm very proud. I think we're we're a good. I think we're a good nation.
Yeah, we are. We can forget that sometimes.
I think we don't talk about it enough.
We need reminding of it, and we need to be proud of it. That's what the Americans get right.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, they do. And I celebrate this. Off the warship I was on, it's got holes in it and stuff. It's like, I get called a nationalist the whole time. It's like, what's wrong with being a nationalist?
It's an easy insult, isn't it? Like, that's what I mean, though. That's what I mean, Tim. You have to be one or the other. You have to be far left or far right, and you can't have a little bit of the left bit and a little bit of the right bit, and not on the extremes, but just halfway there. It's harsh.
It's harsh. Why can't we be individuals? This is what happens. This is where you drag me into, Harry. We talk about intersectionality. We talk about, all these kind of, it's like, why have we got to put people in boxes and call people BAME? Why can't we just say he's a person?
Yeah.
Why his name?
And it all comes down to this guy that you might have heard of called Martin Luther King. And don't quote me on the word for word, but it was, I dream for a day when somebody will be they'll be recognised, understood, or for not for the colour of their skin, but the content of their character. And suddenly we've gone 180.
There's mileage.
Everything is.
People are making money from gender, aren't they? They need. If we're talking about this, which is pathetic, by the way, to talk about race and gender and why, no one cares because we're all together. We've all got men and women.
We're individuals. Yeah, it'd be lovely. And I think it will get like that again. I think we'll go back, and we're having a little hiccup. And as soon as we value individuals, and I don't care what colour you are. If you're a horrible person, I won't like you. If you're a lovely person, then I'll admire you, because I don't know how you could be lovely all the time.
Some walks of life have got a long way till they get to that position. But us three, we can do our bit, can't we?
We can do our bit. Guys, just Tim, if you can stay on just 5 minutes afterwards, we'll just close everything off. Thank you. Loads of really lovely comments and loads of really nice questions as well, which we can't. So if you'll be happy, we'd love to have you on again sometime, because there's so much to talk about and various experiences and things like that, and answer a few more questions from the wonderful people that they've hovered. Live people have been hovering about 125 constantly, so in all, so, and this gets to about 10,000 people every week through all the things. So thank you ever so much. Is there anything else anyone wants to say? Please interview.
Your crowd is a really good crowd. They seem a very authentic. You're lucky. You're a lucky guy, Harry.
They're horrible. No, they're horrible. Especially that Mick Bland guy. God,
yeah.
Really? Here he is. Yeah,
that's not it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, he wants you again. Yeah, Mick, he's great. He's great.
He was in the Navy once.
I look at that dog, don't I? When that dog came up, I'm like, that's me. More firm.
Yeah.
Okay, you drop me in the green room, and then I'll just chill, surf the internet a little bit, that kind of stuff.
Lovely guys. Okay, we'll see you later, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks
indeed.
for staying with us. We ran over late, but it was a brilliant show.
Yeah.
We have to for that.
Cheers.
Take care.
You go to bed now, Dave. All right.
I can, yeah.
Cheers.